has a defender of Argus to continue to add to the taunts.
I
There's
don't
not
think there's
even
any
that big of a
destructive
sense
out of
anymore
this.
to hold on to defender of
No.
Argus.
He gets to heal himself and he gets to play another Sludge Belcher. My
Wow.
goodness.
Devastating for Strifecrow, but I think his Druid deck has already served its purpose. Handlock can be really tough for this very reason. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
You find yourself in the Molten Giant scenarios.
Yep.
Being on the receiving end of Molten Giants is tough. And another Haunted Creeper is not going to do it. And there's no way to draw cards. This is just going to be game over to Reels. Reels is going to tie it up with Handlock.
And Strifecrow doesn't exactly have the easiest answers. He still has Paladin, which can be very effective, but he also still has that Miracle Rogue. So if for some reason something goes disastrously, how do you kind of expect to be able to climb back from that? Strifecrow drops game number 2 and Reels ties it up.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough game. I think that Rogue is certainly not what you want to queue up against Handlock at the moment. So you're just going with you're going with basically all the non-Miracle Rogue options at this point, and then hoping for the best.
Certainly, certainly. So the series is tied up, and it's just getting warmed up. We still have plenty more Hearthstone action to go for the WC North American qualifier. When we come back, game number 3 between Strifecrow and Reels. Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championships for Hearthstone North American Qualifier. Strifecrow versus Reels is currently tied 1-1. Excuse me. And we're coming up on hour 4 of the day, so we hope you guys have been enjoying lots of the cool content. A quick shout out once again for the production. I actually just like turn on the stream during the break and just kind of like watch a little bit of the end of that game. I just noticed how the quality of the stream is pretty phenomenal for an online broadcast. So very well done again to the team of Cindy, Milk, and the rest of the crew. Just want to get that shout out there, Admirable, before we start
Big
game 3.
appreciations. I love working with Milkcast. He's probably my favorite person in Hearthstone as far as behind the scenes is concerned to work with. I don't think it's just second to none. Every single time, live, right on point, handles panic situations well.
Thank you. Yep, puts on sub mode
guy.
and chats with the people. Don't think I don't know, Milk. I know. I see you, buddy.
Those multitask skills.
I see you, Milkcast. Game number 3 between Strifecrow and Reels is coming up. I would have to imagine the Paladin for Strifecrow would be his best answer to the handlock. You have those equality, you have those humility / Peacekeeper Kodo combinations to answer some of the big attack creatures of Giants or even Alexstrasza. We do know Reels has Alexstrasza, which might be one of his tickets to winning against Paladin. If you can kind of time it accordingly with all the heals and be able to reach. So
Yeah,
it's not out of the realm of possibility for him.
definitely not. I think one of the things that he has to be considering the most is how he battles against a card like Equality. It provides a lot of value for Strife Crow, and then the other thing to consider is how you battle against things like Aldor Peacekeeper and Kodo. All of those cards are pretty efficient answers to what you have to do. So if your opponent doesn't draw them, they find themselves in a really bad spot. But if they do draw them, it's where it's the reverse situation. So I think something that actually is really important in this matchup is if he can do something like activate Ancient Watchers and get a lot of value from those. He wants to get value from his worst cards in the matchup before he has to start using his more powerful cards. And that's where he can really start throwing his opponent off, is because hopefully, in that regard, Strife Crow is going to have to invest some actual answers into the less threatening cards to make way for his Giants and for Twilight Drakes and the like.
That's a cool observation. Maybe that'll come into play as game number 3 is about to get underway. Let's jump to the mulligan screen and see what these guys are going to do to open up the game. It is the Paladin, but as expected, pretty decent opening hand for Reals. He does have the Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giant right off the bat.
Yeah, this is a pretty good one. I'd be pretty surprised to see him mulligan Black Knight here as well. He knows that Sludge Belcher's in his opponent's deck. He knows that Tyrion's in his opponent's deck. And it's one of those cards he needs to, again, so we were talking about, he needs to get minions that are good at applying pressure, but aren't necessarily critical to his strategy, and try to pull removal with those spells and move from there.
I think so, too. I think it's a really good keep, and he ends up having it in his hand anyways. Shrafko, in the meantime, does have answers to Giants. I think he didn't... Did he even mulligan anything whatsoever on his end?
I don't think he did, actually.
Well, it's not bad. The Humility can answer the Giant. You have the Acolyte to keep the draws up. One thing that we also saw Shrifeko in his Paladin deck is he has synergies with that Acolyte with an Undead Ghoul. It's something that's been explored in Warrior, but also maybe a little bit in Paladin as well.
The 1/1s add up quickly, too. They feel like they don't, but these 1/1s really start adding up.
It's sometimes your reach to be able to trade with these Giants/Drakes as well. If you have a little bit of that damage with True Silver, and all of a sudden you have like 2 tokens and, you know, like a Harvest Golem or something, and that allows you to reach. And you don't even have to spend your premium removal in order to address it.
Yeah, this is another one of those spots that we were talking about too, with how important it is for Reals to be having these early game cards that can try to force out removal from his opponents. Like, Strifeco doesn't want to use Humility here. He doesn't want to use Consecration. Does he just kind of let the Earthen Ring Farseer do what Earthen Ring Farseer does? If he Humilities, I imagine that Wild Pyromancer is almost certainly going with it. Like, he can play Wild Pyromancer, Humility, the Earthen Ring Farseer. That'll deal a damage, and then he can draw a card from Acolyte, attack again with Acolyte, draw another card. Yeah, he actually probably is going to use Pyromancer now I think about it, because that's a lot of cards to draw off of Acolyte.
Alright, well, that's what he chooses. I like it. Not bad.
Huh.
And he is kind of resilient to the AoE, and it kind of pans into everything else. It is a little bit hard because he doesn't have a direct answer to this Mountain Giant, at least not yet. But he might draw into something that allows him to stall. You know, for example, this... I don't know, he does have the Belcher. Excuse me, I thought he was on 4 mana.
Yeah, this is sort of the stuff that Strifecrow wanted to do, too, is if his opponent is getting in these positions, he's in the same spot where he wants to be using cards that are effectively going to act as removal spells before he uses actual removal spells. So he's a little bit... I think he's not reluctant to use a Humility in that situation, because it's so good against the Giant. The card draw is just worth too much in that position, though. He's actually thinking about how he can just kill this Giant straight away. I think it's a good idea probably to attack this Wild Pyromancer in. Ooh, Loatheb.
At the same time, if he's been kind of watching close, have we seen that Mortal Coil from Reals? So are you really afraid of it anymore? How much does that intel actually come into play?
It's still hard to discount it. I mean, you've played so many games versus Miracle Rogue. I'm sorry, versus Handlock, where they've had Mortal Coil the entire time. I don't think it's like out of your head that your opponent doesn't have Miracle. I'm sorry, that your opponent doesn't have Mortal Coil yet, because we still haven't seen it from Reals. I keep saying Miracle Coil. We still haven't seen Mortal Coil from Reals. I honestly don't think he's running it anymore.
Well, how about this? Second Giant. Forget Mortal Coil.
Yep. If you play the second Giant, do you smash for 8, or do you trade into the Loatheb?
I don't know how much the 8 damage really matters in the face of the paladin. And I think if you get Peacekeepered and then the Loatheb stays alive, then you're looking at a pretty rough spot. But at the same
Yep.
time, you do get that 8 damage in, you force the paladin. I don't know. It depends on how fast you want to play this matchup. I don't think you have to play it that fast.
Yep.
It's kind of a
I
control
don't
versus
either.
control.
That's sort of where I'm sitting too. He does pick up Leroy. I think if he had more pieces to combo in his hand, he definitely would be more aggressive. But since he's only got Leroy in his hand right now, he probably is going to be taking a more defensive route.
Man, Rios is also taking his time too. He likes putting his shirt over his mouth, by the way. That's just like the real thing to do.
It feels like that's what he does when he gets nervous.
When he has to make tough decisions, you know?
Yeah.
He likes doing that. Him and Sixo are the two guys that like to do that the most, from what I've seen on streams.
It's a good Sunwalker turn. You're a little bit worried about stuff like Black Knight and Siphon Soul. But, you know, how many other options do you have?
Yeah, it's not very often where you can force a giant to trade life really inefficiently and you have a Sunwalker that's very effective. That's like a high value Divine Shield.
Actually, I think Belcher's probably better if you're going to play that first. And then this is the other alternative play I was going to mention is he can start drawing more cards off this Acolyte. Because he wants to dig for Equality, too. That's something that's really important. Equality and Aldor Peacekeeper. Both of those cards are pretty critical at the moment.
Sure.
Ooh.
Okay, Soulfire.
I don't think he wants to play that right now.
No, but
I definitely don't think he's going to Black Knight.
You just saw Belchers, you saw Sunwalkers, and you know Tyrion's in, so you Black Knight the Undead Ghoul. Make
You know,
him
if he
draw a
plays
card.
Twilight Drake first, he may be using Soulfire. Because otherwise, you would just attack first, right?
Sure. I mean, you can get that damage in immediately anyways. You can kind of accept the fact that your opponent's going to draw a card, so you don't have to kind of worry too much about denying that.
Well, he's thinking about whether or not he can deal 8 damage to this giant. Like, if he plays the Twilight Drake first, he wants more health from the Drake. And this is sort of a weird play. Wow, that's a perfect discard, too, by the way. Those Watchers, those are the least valuable cards in this matchup. He gets a Loatheb of his own!
Wow. Well, he's going to choose to put the Drake. The Loatheb timing could be super critical, especially if he has a big board and equality consecrations are kind of out the window. You force him to have Pyro and the equality.
Strife goes just a few points of mana off, making some really big plays. Where does he go from here, though? Like, he's got to start making something happen on the board.
Now, because he's kind of also spent some of his lower cost minions, his turns have gotten much clunkier because of how much everything costs.
Yeah.
That's kind of the downside of playing some of these smaller mana creatures in order to draw. Like, you can completely understand from his point of view, but it is a little bit trickier in that respect.
Start chipping away with the True Silver Champion, or just develop it and pass. It feels weird to attack with True Silver here. I wouldn't really understand the plan if you decide to attack with it.
Yeah, there's really nothing that you can benefit other than the fact that you don't want to take extra damage as much if you're going to be swinging twice at the giant. Like if
Twice the giant,
Defender of Argus.
Yeah, twice the giant makes, I think, the most sense. He's really weighing attacking the Drake, I think, though. How much it's worth to be able to get a second attack in next turn. Frankly, I don't think it's worth it. That's going to be handy later on. Wow, he's got Siphon Soul and Black Knight now. And this looks like it's going to be a Loatheb turn. Because... Oh, yeah.
Well,
again, though, there is a lot of merit still. I keep touching on this at the beginning of the match and then wanting to vary my play. There's a lot of benefit, again, to using these less important minions before you use your important ones. If he forces out remove, like imagine if he forces an equality with this board, and then having an Earthen Ring Farseer out. I still like Loatheb though. Loatheb just feels like a good spot to play it. Your opponent has no way when you do this to effectively kill Loatheb or to kill the Twilight Drake. So you're able to force an equality with just this board position and then move forward from there.
All right, Reels picks up a... Finish your thought?
Yeah, I was gonna say he also gets in a bunch of points of damage when he plays it this way too, because his opponent can't play a spell. So he just has 10 points of power on the board, which is pretty, I think, big enough. Like, how much
Sure,
more do you
sure.
need?
It's enough of a threat that Shrevko has to address it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying a lot of good stuff, so I was just kind of like absorbing what you were saying, and it makes total sense that Lotheb, the timing of it's just so specific, and kind of continues to build because people always think of it as his ability, but they forget how imposing sometimes the 5/5 body is because almost anything that comes out, you can kill it. Senjin gets killed. His Belcher will get killed.
Ooh.
The Sunwalker is at 5 health as well.
I think that Defender of Argus is actually a pretty important draw right now.
It hits some really important damage numbers for you to be able to trade appropriately.
Yep.
And it's not like overextending into the board either.
He's still got 10 cards in his hand. He can't even life tap right now.
Well, he could, but we have all. I mean, it would definitely go into. I mean, I'd probably make RDU feel a little bit better after that little misstep at IEM Shenzhen.
If you're wondering why he wants to use Siphon Soul here instead of using Black Knight, the major reason is because he doesn't want to extend more into the board. Oh my gosh!
Wow, second Siphon Soul.
This is spelling big trouble, I think, for StrifeCrow. He doesn't want, anyways, Reels doesn't want to extend more into the board. It's something he's trying to avoid right now. He feels like he has enough pressure out to really put his opponent to the test. He's trying to force, again, as I was mentioning before the match, he wants to force an equality with a relatively poor board state, then follow up with bigger minions. But StrifeCrow, unfortunately, just doesn't even have equality, so he's finding himself in bad spot after bad spot where he's trying to fend off the board with just taunts, and Reels, his hand range is allowing him to be able to really apply a lot of pressure with this board state. Not that this is a poor board state, but it's not the one that Handlock typically is going to be pressuring you with.
How bad does it feel with that 5 health and the 4 damage choose over? And you wish that like you had something like Captain Greenskin or something. Gosh. Everything is just slightly out of range. How annoying is that for StrifeCrow? He could whittle it down. He does have Consecration and backup plays. He has a lot of healing to stay relevant to the game. But you don't want to kind of take it unnecessarily.
Yeah, this is rough. Your opponent just used a Siphon Soul, so it's like how much do you want to invest in the board? And then like how much damage do you want to take? How important is it to be using expensive spells before you use your more flexible, cheaper spells? Which ones are better? Which ones matter less? All these things are coming into an account, and frankly, it's adding up to him making defensive-looking play after defensive-looking play. Oh my gosh.
This is a card that I was saying that before the match, it could be the one impacting a lot, but I mean, Real seems to be doing fine without Alex Straza, honestly.
He's doing well,
just fine. He says, we got this, Alex. You can stay at home, baby.
How much damage does he have on the board now? 9, 13, 14? He's got 14 damage on the board. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a minion here, because Alex Straza is like a surprise lethal next turn. If he's going to play a minion, though, that's not the one I think he's going to play. Or not the one I thought he was going to play anyway.
I don't like doing that, by the way, because I always feel like I mess with the minion swapping bugs, you know, the one, the ghosts walking and lingering around Hearthstone. I don't like doing that. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, no life tap with 9 cards in hand. That'd be a bad move.
All right, StrifeCrow top decks of Ysera.
That's not a very strong draw at the moment.
Still not an option to do everything he wants to.
Oh gosh, I imagine this has got to be a Consecrate turn, right?
Well, at least the nice thing is that this Black Knight has been used, so Sunwalker can kind of come out a little bit more effectively. The Consecration does allow him to kill Lotheb and one of these 4 attacked minions. So I think Sunwalker Consecration is the play here.
It's really tough, I think, to justify anything else. Like, are you getting a better Consecrate here? I just don't think you are.
Not without equality, that's for sure.
Yep.
And
he's got a second Consecrate, so it's more than able to hold one of his Consecrates for the next equality. He's still thinking about it, though. I don't really know what his other options are. Is he really considering dropping Ysera?
Ysera would be a YOLO for Ysera Awakens, and I just do not like Ysera RNG. if you're looking for one specific card. I like Ysera when you're trying to fight for board state as well as card advantage.
Yep.
Okay, Shrike goes actually down to very few cards.
Yep. He's been struggling to stay in this, and I think this is the nature of when your opponent is able to use their worst cards before they have to use their good cards.
Mm-hmm.
So this is looking like a Twilight Drake Siphon Soul turn. Not really null enough to do anything else. And at this point, your opponent's kind of... I feel like you're comfortable thinking that your opponent just doesn't have equality at the moment. He's had a couple of opportunities to really use it, and instead he's been using these mid-range answers that he'd like to follow up with.
Yeah, he's been fighting really inefficient, card inefficient relative to what his opponent's been doing, and in this kind of control setting, it's really powerful. You can also use Defender.
Yep.
I guess.
And they get sticking true to sort of the same game plan where he wants to use these cards that aren't as effective before he uses the more effective ones.
Mm-hmm. Also, keep the Siphon Soul for the biggest threats that exist in his deck, something like Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
I like how slow and how systematic it's been for Reals so far.
His hand is getting... It's fun. What's weird to think is that he's applying all this pressure and his hand continues to get better instead of worse.
Yeah, he's drawing closer to eventually just straight up bursting his opponent too. He has that Leroy. He's on the mana, and eventually he'll probably be tapping closer to the inevitability of finishing off his opponent.
Yep. This is another tough spot for Strifecrow. I mean, how do you climb out of this?
Isn't that the multi-million-dollar question?
Is this another consecration turn? Oh, this is a painful one though.
It's basically 4 mana to kill the Drake.
Yeah.
Guardian Kings contest and heals up, and you can use the True Silver Champion to kind of wheel down the board, but it doesn't feel great either. None of these plays are sexy in any kind of capacity.
Maybe he does just have to YOLO. I mean, are you getting another... It's like he's in a turn where I feel like he can whiff and still not be in the worst shape possible.
But at the same time, how much damage would his opponent be having? 6? He would be at the 18. Right. I don't know how comfortable I feel.
He definitely still has to consider how much combo can affect the game right now.
Yeah, I don't know how comfortable you feel popping Ysera after that. With 18 health and staring at 6. Now he's at 27.
Wow. 2 Sludge Belchers.
My god, this handlock deck has so many annoying minions now.
Is he just going to Alex instead, though? There's a lot of merit, I think, to using Alexstrasza here. Your opponent just healed for 9.
We're doing 12 damage straight to the face.
And putting an 8/8 on the board. Where it's pretty apparent that your opponent is struggling to really put things together.
We have 3 cards left. I like Alex.
Yeah.
And I think Reals likes it too.
Now, the second question,
I like
is this
pressing
4/4
for
going to
damage
the face,
well.
or is the 4/4 going into the 3/3?
I like pressing for damage. You have Leroy. There's a very high chance you have a way to draw into Power Overwhelming or Soulfire of some capacity.
Yep, he's going for it. Even if this fails, look at his backup plan. He's got 2 Sludge Belchers, a Twilight Drake, a Siphon Soul, Shadow Flame, Molten Giant. This game has been very one-sided. Strifecrow's managed to find a way to fight through it and kind of stay in it, but this game has been all Reals.
Tearing off the top, Strifecrow somehow eluded all of his equalities. At this point, it's not sad, it's impressive. From the Hearthstone engine. I have no idea how he's done this. He's drawn through so much of his deck.
He's counting. He's getting the bad news that he's 1 damage off of killing this Alexstrasza. Yeah, I don't think it's an option.
Well, it wasn't pretty, but I think... Oh, wait, no, never mind. He needs an Iron Beak Owl because he has the dim.
Wait, 14,
oh,
15,
wait, an Iron Beak Owl!
Oh my gosh. That's 10. That's only 16 damage, though.
Oh, I totally thought that the Shadow Flame was a power overwhelming based off the color of it. That is my bad. But still
Well,
not good at all for Strife Crow because the Iron
still
Beak out allowed him to deal with it.
It still prevents a 5-5 weapon or 5-3 weapon from coming into play. Deals 8 points of damage.
Jeez Louise.
And look at this. Reels is even going to protect his Alexstrasza with a taunted Iron Beak Owl.
Yep. Well, you know, if equality wasn't coming, he certainly wasn't getting it at this point.
Yeah, that's a brutal spot. He's still forcing his opponent to have something, though. Still fighting well. I think you got to give it well played to Strefko here. I think he did everything he could to try to stay in this game. But Reels understood his game plan at every step of the way. And he just asserted complete domination.
I think it's really difficult to kind of be where he was and stay alive as much as possible. Strife Crow drops this game, and Reels is going to be able to jump out to a 2-1 lead. What a pretty long match and intense for game number 3.
Yeah. A lot of stuff going on in that game, and like you said, quality's not finding their way into Strife Crow's hand. It's pretty brutal when you've drawn that deep and you're still missing everything. So a little bit unlucky, but I think both of these players played about as well as they could.
I think so too. We're getting word that we're going to take a quick break, just because we're going to reset ourselves after that really long game. So after we come back, potentially the last game for Strife Crow versus Reels. Stay tuned, guys. You're watching the WEC North American Qualifier. Welcome back, everybody, to the WEC Qualifiers for North America. Strife Crow is down 1-2 as he drops his Paladin deck that was supposed to be his answer to the handlock and now has to rely on his Miracle Rogue. So far, all going well according to the game plan of Reels. His handlock deck doing some great heavy lifting. And day number 2 of the WEC Qualifier. I'm Frodan. I've been casting the action with you. That's Admirable, joined by my side. And we did have a pretty long game there. Paladin games do last long, but I do have good news that Miracle games often are pretty quick.
Especially when they're playing against handlock. Because one of the things they struggle with the most is turn 4 Giant or Twilight Drake, and then followed by another Giant or a Twilight Drake. But if there's one person I know who knows how to play this matchup, it's Strife Crow. I've seen him play this before. Again, I've mentioned this a few times in the Tavern Takeover, where he kept an opening hand of Gnomish Inventor, Gadget Dan Auctioneer, and Azure Drake, and I was very surprised by it. But something that's so important is to be able to get a little bit of extra minion damage from things like Azure Drake because it's hard to cast so many spells from your hand to pick apart your opponent's board. So one of the things you want to do is use your minion and then cast one of your spells and then reapply pressure to the board from there. So in some regards, Miracle can control the pace of the game just long enough to be able to scale to a big Leroy turn. And that's really what their objective is. So I think that while they're fighting from behind, their game plan is rooted in getting a lot of value from minions damage. And it's something that's like most of the time they're trying to get value from big tempo swings and from just drawing a lot of cards off cards like Gadgets and Auctioneer. But in this matchup, I think it's a lot more about being able to actually control these huge minions that your opponent's able to play.
Definitely, that's for sure. All right, well, the game is ready to go. And let's jump into the mulligans to find out if Strifeco is eliminated here and will Reels be the one advancing? Or shall we go to Game 5, which seems appropriate for these two players of the caliber? I know Strifeco is super confident with Miracle as well. He's one of those guys, he says, he never loses when he has Auctioneer. He's like one of those guys who says, like, I just don't feel like I lose, ever, if he has the Auctioneer.
He's touting something like a 95% win rate with Auctioneer.
Yeah.
I think I heard him say once.
Something bananas like that.
It's just absurd.
So if you're a Strifeco fan already, pretty good odds. Since he has a coin, he has a Gadget Sand. And he's really contemplating over what he should keep with the Gadget Stand.
Real's considering keeping Molten Giant here. I'm a little bit surprised by that.
There's no way he accounts for it being a backspace. No, there's no way.
I don't think so.
No. Then the Molten Giant, then what kind of keep is that for then?
I don't know. He's really upset with his hand, though. He's drawn... Oh, that's brutal. He's drawn 2 of his situational 6s and his Leroy Jenkins in the top 4 cards of his deck.
Yeah, he's essentially
He does have a Mountain Giant, though. Yeah, he does have a Mountain Giant, though.
Okay, and the 2 cards he drew, not bad.
Strifeco's hand continues to get better, though. Wow, look at this hand.
Plenty of stuff to do, although still, there's going to be a Mountain Giant coming down soon.
This is a tough matchup. Ooh, Soulfire. That's a good draw.
Is there really that much to think about if you want to kind of line up for a turn 4 Mountain Giant, or do you want to put something out now?
I think something he's thinking about is if he can draw any removal spells with an Ancient Watcher on the board.
Maybe the backstab already beforehand.
Right.
Save the Mountain Giant, the heartache of having to deal with it.
Yeah. I think it's probably a little bit worse right now, though, because there is something else to consider. I was just about to mention Shadowflame. It's how important it is to have access to Shadowflame on Ancient Watcher, which isn't like the best deal in the world for you, but it's a way to at least weather the storm that Auctioneer presents. Preparation comes into hand. That's always a nice draw. Coin, Preparation, and Auctioneer. You just need some spells to go with it.
All right, well, Reels has Mountain Giant. Ooh, he loses the Watcher, so he can't go for a Shadowflame play. That's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, and he was hoping to do something like the Black Knight, because that was
or one
useless.
Of his 2 Siphon Souls.
Sure.
But not a bad spot to be in, though, because Strifeco does not have a lot of business in his hand outside of just the ability to generate a lot of value through minions.
Yeah,
this has turned out to be... Yeah, this has been a rough pan out.
Hoping he would probably get something like Eviscerate or something like that. Maybe Sap. But this Farseer doesn't exactly present him the best option at the moment.
Nope. This is tough.
Do you push out a 5-drop here?
That's what he's thinking about, is how important is his next 5-drop, and which one does he play? A lot of things are coming into consideration right now. I agree with 5-drop, but I don't know which one.
Lotheb. I don't know if there's any 5-mana cost or cards that usually generally come down on 5 that he's worried about, but at least you get out the strongest minion possible. Ooh. Well, look at that. 5-mana Soulfire. Ooh, oh man, if that was sequenced slightly different, what a game that would have been.
I think you gotta attack Lotheb here.
Yeah.
You don't want to get... You don't want
not happy with that one.
Yeah. 1 card off of just having a brutally good turn.
Oh, that's night and day. That's Giant number 2.
Yeah.
That's 8 more damage that Strifeco has to compensate with. He's going to go for a Farseer play as well.
Yep. Strifeco's found himself now in, I think, what I would consider a very favorable spot.
I think so. He's got draws. He's got bodies to kind of put out. And Reels, on the flip side, Reels doesn't have anything to do. He's got stuff to respond to people.
As much as it sucks to Siphon Soul here, it's probably right. Like, your hand's just so clunky, and you need to get stuff out of your hand, and you don't want to take damage where you don't have to.
You don't like playing like a Black Knight and Soul Firing?
I think Black Knight's okay. I don't know if he Soul Fires, though, if he plays Black Knight. Because at that point, it's like, does he want to discard any more of these cards? That's sort of where my main consideration is which one of these cards can he afford to discard right now? Because all of these are going to come into effect. He still needs to grind through his opponent.
Oh, wow. Fan of Knives. The draws can be very real with the gadget stand very soon.
Oh,
gosh. Man, he trusted his preparation gadget stand.
Oh, gosh.
Get that.
Reels is on 7 mana. You know what? Reels actually is still going to be able to weather this storm, potentially.
Ooh. Ooh.
Wow.
That's pretty disruptive, so that way Strifeco can't go off next turn with a bunch of draws.
He's Soulfire here for sure.
Absolutely.
He wants to discard. Oh, that's the worst one to discard.
Oh,
he needed that for
Black Knight again.
He needed that for Leroy Shadowflame later in the game. Oh my gosh. Strifeco, though, does not have a very strong turn here.
Yeah. The gadget stand won't have to wait one extra turn. You know, he also had Leroy Faceless, so that also eliminates his burst potential late game.
So many options.
And Strifeco somehow, you know, the fact that this turn is kind of defunct, he still has good tools at his disposal. You know, losing the Leroy off that Soulfire has to make you feel pretty good.
Oh yeah. It takes a lot of pressure off of his life total.
Then there's no race anymore. It's just a simple control versus the combo game.
Right. Strifeco's really considering using this Leroy here.
Wow.
This guy's tough.
I sometimes just have the hardest time tapping into Strifeco's mindset sometimes. Okay.
Yeah, it's very it's unique. That's the sort of thing though where you find these weird plays is when you just think about all these things and think about how they're going to pan out. He has so many games experience, and in every single one of these games, he considers quite literally all of his options. It's how you find the strange plays that end up paying off big dividends in the rare scenarios that you find them.
Real's still in kind of tough positions back to back. You know, again, he hasn't really drawn a lot of his big threats. Still kind of looking for things like his Twilight Drakes, or even a Mountain Giant to kind of pair with everything.
Gosh, this is a tough turn too. I think it's really important to get this Sludge Belcher out.
Okay, well, he's going to use the Siphon Soul
not.
instead. Play a little bit more passive, put pressure back on his opponent. I think he doesn't want to lose too much. All right, well, Gadget Sand's coming out, and he has a backstab, so let the chains begin. Yakety sax, I feel like, is also appropriate here.
I don't even think he's going to use preparation this turn.
No.
Which would be very weird. I guess, you know what he can do is see what he draws off his Conceal. And then he's going, I imagine he's going to use Eviscerate here. There's also a lot of,
and Fan of Knives.
Yeah, I think he wants to
fit there.
Yeah, he's going to preparation the Fan of Knives, I think.
I think you don't want to miss the ability to draw.
Yep. This is 3 cards. This is really important. Oh my gosh, he has 2 Conceals.
Wow. Strifeco plays 2 Conceals. I didn't know that. All right.
And since he drew Shiv, he's going to use Shiv instead, of course.
And Cold Bloods.
Wow.
Well, you know, I guess he's got backup Gadget Sand, second string.
Backup Gadgets and Conceal. The backup Gadgets and Conceal.
For the times where the first Gadget Sand Conceal goes wrong. For those very fringe cases, Reels does have an answer. He's got Shadow Flame. He picked up his Twilight Drake. And boy, does that suck.
Yeah.
You're using one of your threats.
He's going to get the bad news. I mean, he's able to clear out the Gadgetzan Auctioneer here, but this is not like a play you're thrilled about. This is just because it's not even just like a 2-for-1. Like, Gadgetzan's already drawn, like, what is it, 5 cards now? Oh my gosh. This is just brutal.
Yep. Well, Reels, I think he's about to discover what the second Gadgetzan can do. Strifeko, he's still looking to pick up things like his second Shadow Step, but by all means, he's got good damage in his hand so far with that Cold Blood and Shadow Step. That's 16, plus the 3 in hand, 19. If you can keep the pain train going with things like his Gadgetzan.
Round 2.
That's lethal for the following turn.
Oh my gosh, Shadow Step. This is so much damage he has assembled now. And Reels, can he kill the board again? So he has 10 mana, right? Yeah, so he can kill the board again.
For Shadow Flame, number 2. Black Knight finally has a use.
Strifeco's just got lethal after that. 18, 22. Strifeco's got 25 points of damage, even after his double concealed Auctioneers
and
have
a
been
sap.
cleared. Are you kidding me?
Why not? And that's exactly what he wanted. And you know what? Reels is now going to be down to his last deck. I believe it's the Druid one, correct? Which means he's going to have to fight a very difficult battle. He needed this handlock to end the game. And now Strifeko is going to be the one on Miracle. And the fact that Reels let this deck live past the veto process might end up biting him in the butt. We're going to game number 5.
I mean, this is the sort of spot you get in when you choose not to ban Rogue from your opponent. This is a risk you take. Is that even if your lineup is well prepared for it, Miracle Rogue is named Miracle Rogue for a reason. It's just because it can win versus almost anything. It's so hard to build a deck that is actually going to have a large favorite against it that when you find yourselves getting into these mid-game scenarios where you're not pressuring Rogue, it can kind of fall apart. I don't. I always say this. I don't disagree with not banning Miracle Rogue, but if there's a lineup that's prepared for it, I think Reels has a good one. And Druid's not the worst matchup, but this is a matchup that it's a lot about how Druid gets its pressure going, and then if it can follow up with Force of Nature Savage Roar combo. If he doesn't put that together, that's where he's finding his losses. But if he does put that combination together, it's oftentimes in favor of Druid.
What's the Druid that Reels is also bringing to the table at the moment? Do we kind of recall here? Because we didn't get to see it earlier when he 3-0'd with Handlock versus Brad. But is he playing that mid-range Druid that has a lot of like strong drops with like Cairn and the Belchers or whatever they're playing nowadays? Or is he playing more of the token style?
I imagine that Reels is going to be favoring sort of the mid-range over anything else. One of the things I know he likes is he likes strong drops throughout the game, and he likes his deck scaling. So with cards like Argent Squire, it's not that you don't see him playing them. You just don't see him playing very often, just because I think that he thinks there are better strategies available. So I don't remember have we even seen it this tournament? Was his Druid banned in the one time that in the match that he lost? I don't think it was.
No, he was playing Brad in the very beginning. Oh no, he played Brad earlier today. Reels had to play. Gosh, I'm totally blanking at the moment.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. There's been a lot of games.
I'm totally blanking at the moment, and I apologize.
We've seen a ton of games.
Yeah.
But it's like Reels doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to play token that often. It's not that he's never going to play it, but I think he puts more value on scaling minions than he does on the ability to blow their opponent out of the water within the first couple of turns.
Okay. I'm trying my hardest to remember. We had a Moz versus Fire, but I have to walk it down. Raynad versus Strife Crow. Was it Tides of Time versus Reels? It could be. And then we had Brad versus. Gosh, I'm totally blanking at the moment. We need to pull up the brackets here. Can we pull up the brackets real quick and just figure it out? There we go.
Yep. Hints
finally being realized. It was against Alchemix, of course it was. And yeah, I think Alchemix did ban the Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, I know Alchemix banned Miracle Rogue, or vetoed it rather.
Sure.
Yeah, he hates that. He doesn't even bring it in his lineup. He's like, I know they're going to veto it anyway. I might as well just not play it and have a more confusing lineup for my opponent. Which actually I don't think is that bad of a strategy. Because not only do you get one over on the people who are intending to let you through with Miracle, because they have a strong lineup for it, and they're like, oh my gosh, my decks are aimed at Miracle, and I wasn't going to ban Miracle, and now you don't even have it.
Well, it all comes down to this, man. Game number 5 between Reels and Strifeco. One person will face Tides in the last series of the day. And the loser will be in top 6 along with Reynad.
Yep. That Chillin Yeti sort of gives you all the information you need that he's playing a mid-range druid that wants to scale into powerful minions and then finish their opponent off.
Yeah, you get that Innervate out, it can spell disaster for the rogue if you're able to continue to put pressure. Turn 1 Yeti is very difficult to deal with as a Miracle Rogue.
Strifeco's actually who's considering keeping Conceal. That's sort of really strange to me. And Reels picks up a Wild Growth, too. Reels has got a pretty strong hand to fight this matchup now.
Yeah, you know, Strifeco, he has Sap, which can be effective, but not when Reels is going to curve out really nicely. He doesn't need necessarily something like Innervate. But Strifeco picked up his gadgets, Dan.
Wow. Right away. And this is the spot where he finds what he claims, or at least I believe he claimed, was a 95% win rate. Which, after watching him play, that wouldn't even surprise me. He played that Miracle game, I think, pretty close to flawlessly.
Wild Growth coming out for Reels, but we knew that was coming because he's able to curve out very nicely with the Yetis and even the Drake afterwards. Strifeco picks up a Shiv. How far does he want to keep cycling, or does he want to save that for gadgets, Dan? I think you read Dagger, though, for sure.
Yep. This is something that's sort of weird to see, is when Strifeco doesn't just play a minion without getting a Battlecry effect.
Right, we're so used to him. We're so used to him going for board control, but, you know, you play to the Miracle strengths. SI7 agent with the backstab is just too powerful, especially when you can just kill off the Yeti right here.
Yep. Wow, and he picks up a preparation, too.
Oh, man. Everything's lining up so well. Because then if Reels interface something out really intimidating, if with mid-range, say he picks up Karen or something, then the Sap is here as well. Oh, man.
This is looking like bad news for Reels. Oh, he picks up the combo, though.
Okay, so then at least now he has something to work towards, and he can push this Keeper the Grove to start doing some damage.
Yep. It's also something to note here. He made a very interesting play by not choosing to deal 1 damage with Wrath and then Keeper the 3/3. And because he drew combo, that really influenced the way he's going to approach this game afterwards. He just wants to push for damage now. If he gets to his opponent to the 14 range, he's got a way to kill him. So if he can force his opponent to kind of have to take care of his minions along the entire step of the way, he's going to find himself at a big advantage. And I think that's exactly what he's trying to do.
Man, Loteb is really powerful against Druid. They can't use immediate responses to it to try to remove. Reels is going to most likely dig. I don't think Defender of Argus is really that strong. Unless you want to move with Keeper the Grove.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of merit to considering keepering and using the hero power on the Lotheb as well, but he needs to stick to his... Wow, an Argent Commander. Yeah, he needs to stick to this plan of just trying to attack his opponent and sort of pseudo-forcing his minions to have taunt. And wow, a Conceal is drawn! That is a huge draw right now, because now Strifeco doesn't even have to Shadow Step this Lotheb to protect it for a turn. This is Gadget Zan, prep, sap the Azure Drake, attack the 2/4, and then Conceal?
Sounds good to me.
And then going into turn 9, he has Shadow Step on the Lotheb to prevent him from even getting blown out by... Oh my gosh.
Wow. And he has ways to keep up the draws as well. With the Shivs in the following turns, he can draw a lot of cards. Double preparation. Oh no. Reels is leaning back in his chair. I think he realizes that this could be the start of the end.
Oh my gosh. How on earth is Reels going to get himself out of this?
Maybe he draws into Eviscerate. He can save the Sap if there's a big taunter like Ancient of War. Second prep. Pretty devastating once again. Reels getting more unsettled by the second.
There's the Eviscerate. Oh my gosh.
What can you do if you're Reels? You just have to kind of keep pressing. 7 mana, still so far from the destination. All you need is 2 simple mana crystals, but you feel like you can never get there.
Oh my
top
gosh.
deck for Strifeco.
Is that lethal? 12, 16, 25, 26 damage, it looks like to me. Is that 1 damage off lethal?
Yeah, I think that is 1 damage. If it is 26.
So he's got
12.
12 with Leroy Shadow Step, 16 with
9.
Cold Blood, 25, 20. He's 1 damage off lethal.
You know, I don't know if he actually probably counted really quick, but he was almost quick to dismiss that.
Yeah, it's not often you feel like you have just 27 points of damage lying around on turn 7, but if there's a tech that needs to count it, boy oh boy.
If he's this close, I like shadow stepping Lotheb right here, attacking, shadow stepping.
I don't even think he needs to. Oh my gosh, he's got so much pressure. I don't even think he needs a Cold Blood. I actually would save Cold Blood here. You have everything you need. You
Just Van Cleef.
just threaten with Van Cleef. Like, what else do you need to do?
Well, you just need to set up for a way that Leroy can be successful in the following turns.
Yep. I think you want the Cold Blood to press. Like, if your opponent has something like Ancient of War, it helps you push through with the Cold Blood. Yeah, this is just. I don't think there's anything Reels can do to get out of this game.
Here we go.
Reels
Okay,
would need
well-
to drop 2 copies of Innervate to actually win the game here.
Yeah, off that one single top deck, he gets the Harvest Golem, which isn't what he wanted, and Reels is going to concede, and that is the end of his run. Shrivko advances to play tie to time for a spot in the top 3.
Yep, you gotta start wondering if you should have banned Miracle when you get to that position, because frankly, those are the kinds of games I want to avoid. Even if it's like, it just feels bad. Like, even if you think you have a bigger edge by leaving Miracle up, there's so much taken away from the fact that there's not a lot of interaction in the matchup. It's so much versus like, how did my opponent draw versus how I drew. In a lot of other matchups, it comes down to draws as well, but how people approach the game and what their game plan is, like moving forward from certain circumstances, gives your opponent opportunity to make mistakes. But with Miracle, it's like you play to a certain level, and then it gets you to your critical mass. And it's so much more based around the fact that you've drawn Auctioneer than it is based around the fact that you've actually made a lot of decisions according to how your opponent has presented a board state. And it's just you got to favor banning Miracle, I think, if you're in that spot. And I think, frankly, this is an example. This is a perfect example of why you should do it.
If you kind of recap what just happened, Shrivko got not only the perfect draws, but as a result, Reels was only able to play 6 or 7 cards of his entire deck that duration of the game. It was pretty one-sided from the very get-go. And as a result, the explosiveness of Miracle was just put on full display. And that's most likely why I'm almost certain that Tides will ban that Rogue for Shrivko, and maybe vice versa. We'll find out more when we come back from a quick break. The final series to determine who goes to the top 3 and game number 3 here at the WEC, North American Qualifiers. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the World Esports Championship for Hearthstone North American Qualifiers. It's time for our top 4 match to determine who will go to day 3. Tides versus StrifeCrow, 2 of the best control players you'll see around in Hearthstone. And these guys are raring to go. Now, before the match, I heard a little bit about the match. I heard about a little bit about the deck preparations and the vetoes, Admirable. And I know you have a lot to say about it. Let's look at the screen real quick so that we can show that Tides has apparently chosen not to ban Miracle Rogue anymore. Nope, apologize for that. A quick little brief thing. Let's actually look at the people who've been eliminated so far. As Reels joins the bottom 4 people of Amaz, Brad, and Reynad, which isn't exactly a say that he played poorly by any means. Reels also made some strong plays throughout the entire series of today, and I think overall he should be kind of proud of the accomplishment. It's not a shame whatsoever to lose to someone of StrifeCrow's caliber. But at the same time, it's a little bit sad that he had to end right here.
Yeah, I don't think you can call yourself ashamed to lose any of these players, honestly. That's sort of the nature of these stacked tournaments, is everyone's really good. But someone has to win and someone has to lose. And if I had to pick someone who played really well, Reels would definitely be one of them. I think that he understood his game plans going into every single match. I think he understood his mulligans. And I think it's kind of on the back of a couple of poor draws and some very strong draws from Miracle, but yeah, you know, it is something that you may want to reevaluate. Like, should I be banning Miracle Rogue? I think the answer is yes. Any tournament I played in right now, I'd be banning Miracle Rogue because it basically just has the highest win rate of every single deck. I don't understand not banning it. I'm sorry, not vetoing it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's the least interactive deck. It's the most oppressive deck. It's warping the way you build all of your decks, and it's holding a lot of decks from being playable strategies when they otherwise are pretty good. So, I mean, coming into this, it makes a lot of sense, I think, to veto Miracle Rogue from StrifeCrow. The guy keeps winning all the time, and he's vetoing Miracle Rogue pretty much at every single opportunity. And then Tides, I'm trying to wrap my brain around the justification for not banning Rogue. Like, he's banned Paladin instead of banning Rogue. I don't understand it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, this is the deck you're worried about, right?
I'm trying to agree with you here, and I totally see your point. I'm just trying to think of a counter devil's advocate point where maybe Tides has some kind of plan. Like, how does Paladin kind of interact with his classes? Is Paladin really good against, his Zoo? Is good against his Druid? Maybe good against his Hunter as well?
He definitely he has a game plan in mind, but my argument isn't whether or not he has a game plan and whether or not his game plan is solid. It's whether or not his game plan could be better. And I think, yes, I think you could just veto Miracle Rogue and not have to worry about playing against it. It's clearly the strongest deck. It's been putting up phenomenal numbers on ladder and in tournaments. It's a deck that pretty much every single person in the world wants to get rid of that plays Hearthstone at a competitive level. I don't understand it.
Fair enough analysis. I think it comes down against how comfortable people feel. Maybe people have been feeling pretty decent against Miracle. Reels is the one who's also known to, in the previous series, to also not ban Miracle, and he's done okay when at least he's able to get some good draws. Let's go into the mulligans of game number 1 and find out what happens between StrifeCrow and Tides. It is going to be a Zoo versus the Miracle, and I think this game can almost determine the entire series.
Yeah, if Tides is able to get past Miracle right here, which is a really tough matchup at this point, I think he's pretty heavily favored. But if he doesn't get past this point, it sort of is going to find himself in the same position that Reels did. Like, is he going to go back to the drawing board and think, should I have banned Miracle instead?
Well, Miracle gets the coin and takes it away from the Zoo, so that is already a great start. Not to mention that StrifeCrow has SI7 agent. This already looks pretty dicey. Oh my goodness.
He picks up a backstab as well.
Yikes.
Ooh, that's a good draw, though.
Sure. So you can take a little bit of damage.
This actually is this may be like a reverse good draw, because I see him playing Knife Juggler a lot on turn 2, and his opponent having backstab and SI7 agent. So a lot of this is going to come down to whether or not he plays this Haunted Creeper or whether he plays Knife Juggler next.
I think if you have the coin, you can kind of be a little bit more liberal with backstab because most likely you're going to utilize it next turn.
Yeah,
the only exception is if he drops like the Ruby and Egg.
Yep. He can just backstab here too. That's actually a really good point. You can just coin SI next turn. This prevents 3 damage.
Okay. Well, this could be an important moment. Tides goes immediately for the Haunted Creeper.
Yep. I like it. Try to keep yourself out of range of a SI7 agent just blowing you out of the water as much as you can.
Absolutely. Because then how are you supposed to deal with that? The fact that SI7 agent can kill whatever it is, it's 2 for 1. Miracle Rogue can continue to be super efficient.
Right.
All right. Well, Tides is starting to curve out a little bit better, and this is much better indication of what Zoo can do compared to his previous Zoo games. Sometimes he was just getting like constant 4 drops to start off with like a 2-mana hand. So at this point, he's starting to get really nice curves. How is Strife going to kind of respond? He has that Deadly Poison Coin SI7 agent combo, which could be really nasty as well.
Yep. That's what I think he's going to go for too. Which it's actually kind of, it's not the worst thing for Tides, because Tides is going to find himself in a spot where Dark Iron Dwarf's now getting a lot of value. Because he can just buff up one of the spiders. So not the worst position in the world, but both these players are still fighting very hard for board control.
Yeah, and you know, the Rogue can start using his health as a resource in trade, but not too much. And Tides might come on really powerful turns too if he draws into things like Doomguard.
Yep. A pretty solid hand though. Knife Juggler, Voidwalker, and whatever his next draw is, plus the Soulfire.
Shadow Step often can be pretty useful too if you have things like SI7 Agent and Van Cleave, but those things are just kind of pieces at the moment.
That's not a very good draw. But he has 2 of those in the deck though, so this is going to happen sometimes. That Miracle is going to find itself in positions where it draws a lot of its utility cards and not a lot of action to go with them.
I'm kind of surprised that he did go for 2 conceals now that I remember it.
Second Voidwalker is a really good draw. That's going to hold off a lot of potentially profitable attacks that Strifecrow can put together with something like Azure Drake. The 1/3s are really important right now.
Okay, well, Strifecrow does have that Farseer, but staring at a lot of damage at the moment. What can he top deck? Maybe Backstab would be super clutch at the moment.
Shiv is not. And now Tides, he may have taken complete control of this game here.
Because he has Soulfire. He just has to make sure not to top deck something like a second Soulfire. That would be pretty annoying. Oh, a Doomguard.
You got to tap here and try to 50-50, right?
Really? I think you just slam Doomguard and go for
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Oh, he gets a juggle on the Drake. That's really important too.
Wow, this is a complete reversal of
The Doomguard is just so hard to deal with. Oh, and he's missing the spell power. That was a ticket for him to be able to remove efficiently. If he had spell power, that was exactly it. Miracle Rogue has such a difficult time with Doomguard. A lot of times it's a stall mechanic. You sap because you hope you can buy time, but even then, sap against Doomguard is pretty resistant to it. I think Tides might be able to turn this game, and Miracle can be the one that often takes out the Zoo, but when you don't have the ability to hold off the pressure, this is what happens.
It's not game over yet, but Tides is in a very favored position, I think. Oh, those are 2 kind of poor draws.
Yeah,
He would have
that's
liked to see
pretty
something else
weak.
for sure. But just putting together all the damage you can. I 100% agree. I would not be attacking any minions right now. Oh, this is tough, though. There is merit to you should be thinking about it, though, but I think at the end of the day you conclude that taking out over a third of your opponent's remaining life total is much better.
Well,
wow, and now Strifecrow's put together 2 Eviscerate, so he can actually take out this Doomguard now. This board may swing back in favor of Strifecrow because he's got 2 Shadow Steps to heal back up with these Earthen Ring Farseers.
that is true. We forgot about the practicality of the Shadow Steps for a second. Ooh, second conceal. Oh. Well, I guess that compensates for the fact that Strifecrow did have the God draw in the previous game against Reels with his Miracle deck.
Oh my gosh. Do you conceal here? I think you're supposed to conceal, honestly. I don't know. It's kind of tough. Healing up has a lot of merit because it protects you from Doomguard now. But concealing protects your opponent from being able to draw a buff and really pick apart these Earthen Ring Farseers afterwards.
Sure, Defender of Argus would give you a bad day.
Yep.
Dark Iron Dwarf, another card that can completely destroy one of these Farseers. Abusive Sarge? Oh my goodness. Back-to-back buff cards, but that's what Zoo does. It builds on the cards that are on the board to control and get favorable trades.
This is going to be rough now for Strife Crow. But he's still considering, oh my gosh. That. Oh no. He's thinking that Strife Crow doesn't have another Shadow Step. This could come back to hurt him now. Fan of Knives!
Ooh.
Are you kidding me?
Wow. Now keep in mind that Tide still can do something with Doomguard and Soulfire, but that's going to be really tough to get those sequence of draws.
I cannot believe that this game is going to turn around right here.
Well, hold on. I mean, if Shrevko gets something like Cold Blood, he's still kind of in murky waters. But if he picks up something important, Leroy...
Oh my gosh. He's counting his damage.
He can Leroy conceal, right?
I don't know. I don't know if he can afford to do that though.
You might have to Shadow Step just to heal. 4 damage is not a lot for Zoo to generate.
He might need to conceal it actually. I think he is going to conceal. I think he's going to play Leroy, take out both the tokens, and hope his opponent doesn't top deck.
Leroy is a play to win for the next turn, though.
Yep.
But you can't Leroy conceal. Then you generate 2 whelps, and he has to generate 2 damage. Can you really afford to do that?
Right. Well, that's why I think the Earthen Ring Farseer has to attack into one of them.
Then how do you get rid of the Dark Iron Dwarf?
Well, you attack with the first Earthen Ring, that's for sure. This is a tough turn, honestly. It really is. He's going to go for the win, though.
Oh, wow. This is ballsy. He's going for it. Ties to generate 2 damage of some sort.
Did Strikeco just miss an attack with Earthen Ring Farseer?
No, it was already idle. That's why I was confused when you're saying to attack with it. Oh, he top decked the Defender of Argus. That's it. And Shrivko's gamble did not pay off. But can you blame him?
Well,
if he was going to run out of damage at one point.
This is sort of weird now. I want to talk. This last turn got really crazy. Why did he not attack one of the whelps with the dagger to prevent Defender of Argus from being an out? Like, did he need the damage that badly? Oh, he was just going straight up for lethal next turn because he has 6 from Leroy.
His opponent was at 18, right?
His opponent was at 16. So he's going straight for lethal next turn by not attacking one of the whelps with the dagger. So he's leaving Defender of Argus up to deal exactly 16 points of damage on the next turn.
Okay.
With 6 from Leroy, 6 more from Shadow Step, 3 from Earthen Ring, and 1 from Dagger. So that's why he attacked the face instead of attacking a whelp.
So he went for the win, but it was not paid off. I mean, Zoo has so many ways to damage. Both that damage. There's a lot of outs for Tides. You could say he got lucky, but he didn't even have this life tap to get another opportunity. And now has struck down the Cursed Miracle Rogue that has been so powerful for Strifeco. And you know what? He lost, but he didn't have Gadgets and Auctioneer. So the percentage for Strifeco is still very much alive, at least with his boast that he wins most of his games, if not all of them, with the Gadgets and the Miracle Rogue.
Yeah, I think now. I mean, now he's gotten over the hump. He's in fine shape. I mean, not only is he up a game, but his opponent doesn't have Miracle Rogue, and he banned out a deck that he perceived as being strong versus the rest of his lineup. So this is a big risk you take with this. Is that once you've gotten past this point, you're doing fine now. You have a big advantage. But the problem is when you aren't beating Miracle Rogue, you're at a big disadvantage. So it's sort of a feast or famine strategy where it either works really well and you look like a genius, or it works out really poorly and you feel like maybe you should have taken a different route.
Before we move on to the next game, I kind of want to ask one more question. Do you think this double conceal build from Strifecrow has ended up working in his favor? I mean, maybe it worked against Reels, but again, having those 2 conceals early on is a big factor for him not being able to get through a better portion of the deck. If that was something else that helped improve the consistency of draws and whatnot, maybe he would be able to get closer to another answer to Zoo.
Well, I think what a big influence is when your opponents are playing a lot of control decks. Like, we've seen a lot of of Paladin kind of coming into this, and I think they expected a lot of Warrior coming into it as well. So, and then of course a lot of Handlock. So double conceal really works really well in those control matchups because what you need is very powerful gadgets and turns, and so those are always associated with conceal. So when you have 2 conceals, it helps you fight against Warrior and it helps you fight against Paladin because it forces your opponent to have these very specific answers, which even though they answer Gadgets and Auctioneer, end up being pretty inefficient anyway because you've drawn so many cards off Gadgets and Auctioneer. So it makes a lot of sense to run 2 conceals when you're anticipating a lot of control. And if you're not anticipating so much control, that's when you start cutting into 1. instead.
Sure, sure. All right. Well, it's fair enough. Game number 2 is about to begin, by the way, so let's jump into the screen and find out how Strife is going to fare with his Druid deck. Druid's a fair assessment as well because, well, you know, the Hunter is not exactly the best choice against the Zoo. Strifeco did pull out of it against Reynad in a very tight game. It was game number 5. But generally speaking, that's not a matchup that you're looking very favorably in from the get-go.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's really dependent on how you end up drawing really well with Hunter. If you don't draw something like Unleash the Hounds or Explosive Trap, you often find yourself in a spot where your opponent just runs you over with minions that are more efficient than yours. So Druid isn't a good spot to be in either, but if you get the right kinds of draws, you can pan it out. And one of the most important cards is Keeper of the Grove. If you can put a Keeper of the Grove on the board versus something, let's say like an opponent's Knife Juggler or a Flame Imp, you suddenly find yourself in a spot where you feel like you have a lot of breathing room, where otherwise you're struggling to keep control of the board turn after turn.
Strifeco picking up a Harvest Golem, which would be nice for the following turns, especially since it seems like Tides will have a little bit more setup with his double Nerubian eggs in his hand. Still, though, Strifeco does have combo pieces, but as much as they're great together, oftentimes they're separated in this matchup.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm a little bit interested that he plays the egg instead of playing the Haunted Creeper. And I guess this is because he's going for a big defender egg turn.
Uh-huh.
Well, now he can just activate it.
That wouldn't be so bad. Although, I guess he is more swipe resilient as well.
Yep.
Because he does have that second egg.
Yes and no. I mean, he loses one of his 4/4s now if swipe happens. But it's not the worst thing in the world, I don't think. You do force your opponent to have swipe in their range if that's a play they want to make. And if they don't have swipe, you end up with a big benefit. Again, sort of, he's making plays that are going to pay off really well when his opponent doesn't have a part of his range that they need, and that are they're gonna sting a little bit when your opponent does have that portion of their range. But that's a good way to play. Like if you're putting your opponent to the test every single time, they have to have it every single time. And if they're not having it, you're finding yourself in a very successful game plan.
Strifeco having over that Innervate as well. Maybe pushing over some of the Force of Nature, try to go for a clear right off the bat and deal with these things before they can get spiral out of control.
I don't think it matters how you attack your Strifeco.
Just in case, you know, you never
Just
know.
good habits. Just good habits to have.
Just to make sure, double check. Back over to Tides, where he's able to pick up Direwolf Alpha and have a way to activate this egg and start pushing back. Strifeco has used an Innervate too, so that feels good for Tides, where he had to use Innervate into removal as opposed to just straight up removal.
Yeah, and he's kind of following it up with not the strongest minions either. 1/1s and 1. This is the spot where... This is like really the spot where you want to end up playing your 5-drops and your 6-drops, but when you've diluted that pool of minions, where they're using 1 and 2-drops to kind of scale, because you're turning basically the mid game into the late game for you. So your deck density has gone down a lot, but your early game power has gone up tremendously. You'll typically find yourself with a big life edge when your plan works out.
Okay, well, Strifeco opts to save his Power of the Wild. I think it's better off used with the tokens as well. Try to spread out that buff across 2 minions instead of 1. Meanwhile, set it up. But Tides also has a way to kind of retaliate immediately with his own Defender of Argus play.
Oh. I wonder what... Okay, I see what he's doing. Straight to the dome. Agreed. Now's the point where you can start taking an aggressive edge because you've completely picked apart your opponent's board.
Ooh, Keeper of the Grove is nice. Take care of that egg.
It's good, but it might be too little too late. He's going to be able to fight through this game, but now's the point where he hasn't applied any pressure to Tides. So there's no threat of Tides coming out of this facing down lethal. So he's just free to tap every single turn and then use the 2 cards to continue to take advantage of the game.
He's also got Knife Juggler, things that can completely explode open the board as soon as you use the trade. Oh, man, that is crazy, too. These Juggles plus the Abusive Sergeant can open up a world of possibilities where Tides is able to get really clean board sweeps. And he lands on the Keeper of the Grove. Oh my god, where are these two knives going? No. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the knife juggler, right? Isn't that exactly the show that he did? What else are you supposed to do? You just have to laugh at that point if you're Strifeco, because like that's exactly the things he needed. Oh my god, that was crazy.
That is a 360 no scope.
Oh my god.
Knife juggler.
MLG montage coming to see you pretty soon. Oh, where's the dubstep? God.
What on earth? How on earth do you get? I guess you just draw Ancients and hope that it works out in your favor. But when he sees this Doomguard, boy oh boy.
I mean, you just gotta reduce the damage as much as you can. I mean, you can try to take out this Defender of Argus.
I like attacking the Defender of Argus because it sets you up using your hero power next turn. Like you want to chew through all these minions, but it's close.
It happens the same way. Your hero power will still be affecting, and you're going to be placing something like Power of the Wild, most likely, unless you draw something else. Oh, wow. He picks up a 2-drop immediately to fit within the curve. Another single point of damage. And I think Strifeco might be dropping this game soon unless a miracle comes in his way.
Yep. This is, well... No, that doesn't really... He needs spell power to go with that. This is... I don't think there's any way he gets out of this. Even just at the end of the day, if he ends up clearing out all of his opponent's stuff, his opponent's drawing 2 cards to turn to his 1. And since Tides is still at such a high life total, he can't find a way to actually pressure him out of the game. Like, Tides is free to draw an extra 6 or 7 cards this game and not really consider how it impacts his life total.
Agreed. Tides needs 4 damage, so Soulfire or another Doomguard would be exactly what he needs. Well, he has one of that. Shattered Sun Cleric is nice. Guess you can make the egg sort of relevant. A little inconsequential. Ooh.
Well, Strifeco's going to need some major help here, or he's just out of it. Frankly, I don't even know what he can draw.
No, he needed Gosh, what did he need?
He needed an Innervate and a Deathwing is what he needed. But he's not going to get it this game.
I suppose so.
Time's going to take a 2-0 lead. Zoo really putting a lot of pressure on opponents. You know what? I have to admit, there is a deck that's very similar to Miracle in that same regard, where if you don't manage to stop it, it can run over your entire lineup. And Zoo was certainly it. He got past the Miracle Hill, and after that, I think this match might have snowballed out of control, because I've played a lot of Hunter before, and it is not very good against Zoo. It is a matchup I've tried to avoid for a very long time.
It could be the last game for Strifeco. We'll find out right after this break. You're watching the WEC North American Qualifier. We'll be right back. Yo, 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 welcome back everybody to the World Esport Championship, where we just saw some of the craziest plays of the knife juggler in recent memory, being able to juggle exactly to the right 3 targets back to back to back time. We call that a hat trick in a lot of sports, but sometimes we just call that Hearthstone. Tides of Time is currently up 2-0, and Strife goes down to his Hunter deck as the last resort. This is his last life. 3 strikes and you're out, and Strife Crow will have to rely on a tough matchup. At the same time, though, if he kind of gets over the zoo, maybe at the same time his odds aren't so bad facing the rest of the 2 decks.
Well, I do know that he's come back from 0-2 deficits before when the first matchup he was facing was very unfavorable because in the deck versus finale, I actually needed him to win 3-2 so that way on tiebreakers I could advance to the finals so I could play against Tides. That's exactly what Strife Crow did, and he was facing a very bad matchup. And in this one, it's exactly the same position he's in. He's facing a poor matchup with Hunter. He's going to be very reliant on being able to counter swing the board with something like Unleash the Hounds and Timberwolf, and then hope to take control of the game afterwards. But if he finds himself coming up short, he's probably just going to get run over.
I'm inclined to agree. Game 3 is prepared and ready to go. Strife Crow, what's it going to be? He needs to draw these cards like Unleash the Hounds, really important ones to kind of control the state of the board. He can kind of stall until then. These cards delay the inevitable, but I think when you're kind of knowing you're going up against the zoo, you got to push as hard as you can for things like Unleash.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Unleash is by far the most important card. And you're not disappointed to draw into these other cards, but you need as many chances as you can get to draw Unleash the Hounds. And Tide's wasting no time. That hand is very strong.
Absolutely. Strife Crow does have some of these answers. He's got the Timberwolf, and he also has the Stone Tusk board to kind of pair things together for the inevitable buzzard play. Also has an opportunity to use tracking and try to dig deeper and see if he can get to that Unleash quick.
He's considering the merits of using Stone Tusk board and Timberwolf on turn 1. I think tracking's better, though. You need to find Unleash. It's the card you're missing right now.
There we go.
There it is.
And Strife goes very much alive and kicking with this kind of hand. How much damage is he going to accrue, though, before he's able to kind of execute this combo?
Yeah, this is something else that is going to end up mattering a lot, is that Tides also has Voidwalker, and he also has Harvest Golem. So a lot of these minions that he has are just, frankly, they're resilient to Unleash the Hounds. So it's gonna be close, I think, at the very end, even if he gets off a very strong Unleash the Hound's turn. He actually might find himself needing to Unleash before he gets to Buzzard, simply to stave off this pressure, because there's going to be a lot of damage coming from Tides in the next 2 turns.
You know, at the same time, you kind of want to employ the coin as often as you can, or use it as... You want to save it as much as you can so that you can employ this Unleash combo. It's not ideal whatsoever to kind of use it prematurely. Strife Crow has to kind of mull over very carefully every single decision. What's the pros and cons of utilizing Timberwolf now versus saving it for something like Unleash later?
Right. Every single one of these turns adds up to a lot of damage. And he can't be affording to sacrifice where he could be finding a spot to make something happen. But Timberwolf is going to be so critical to making sure that he can sweep this board out. But now Tides actually has a decision on his hands. And I imagine he's just going to go for it, because this seems to be the line of thought today, is if my opponent has Explosive Trap, they have Explosive Trap. Explosive Trap's a card that's kind of dangerous to run when all of your opponents understand that Egg is a deck that you're playing. So the thought process here is whether or not he's going to extend into an Explosive Trap or not. It's something that's certainly on his mind. Whether or not it ends up affecting his decision is another thing, but that thought is always there. And now Strife Crow, he's just 2 more turns away from making something happen. I think he's going to have to Unleash this turn, and this is exactly what I was touching on. He's just going to be facing down so much pressure that he feels comfortable recovering without drawing 3 cards from this Unleash the Hounds, but he doesn't feel comfortable taking too much damage and then just finding himself so far behind that he can't make anything happen.
I'm behind that 100%. You know, he's got good quality cards too. He's not really needed to draw too much. The purpose of Unleash is twofold: one, to draw cards, but also to just, you know, control the crowd, take it down a little bit, make sure to be able to stop the pressure. Faced with an interesting decision already to try to see if he can I mean, pushing for damage isn't exactly the priority because there's not often the case where you can end the game. So getting the damage now on this Harvest Golem, is that what you want to do?
It's tough to say. I mean, if Tides ends up attacking the Timberwolf, he loses a point of damage on this Harvest Golem. So he'll have a 2-1 in play instead of a damage. He'll have a 2-1 Harvest Golem in play instead of a 2-1 damage Golem, and that can make enough of an impact to matter. And this juggle, just barely misses.
But at least he gets to make it up with another damage. I mean, the Harvest Golem was about the same either way. It's still going to be a 2-1 minion, so I think Tides isn't too beat up about it, but at least it would have been nice if we could squeeze in that damage to the face.
Yeah. For those people curious, by the way, why he chooses to attack here, it's so a second Unleash the Hound doesn't blow him out. If his opponent had a second Unleash the Hounds, he would have lost his entire board, and that's not the position he wants to find himself in. Oh, he makes... Huffer is not the one you want to make right now, because that's just going to be a direct trade.
Alright, well, he also uses the Stone Tusk Boar. Yeah, that offer does sting. Misha would have been much better. I mean, even Leok could have at least dictated a slightly better trade, perhaps.
Wow, a weird mana turn here for Tides. I'm not sure if Voidwalker or Argent Squire is better, actually. This is another kind of... These little small decisions are really what makes a difference when you're playing a deck like Zoo, by the way. Is because there's so many different approaches to the game that your opponent's going to have that each one of these ends up mattering way more than you think it ends up mattering. And I know that sounds weird to say, but the experience is what builds that knowledge. Like, stumbling across the right play isn't what the right play is. You don't want to stumble across the right play. You actually want to make the right play. And that's why every single one of these decisions is evaluated over and over again by these players.
Wow, a pretty important snipe on that Direwolf Alpha for that for the Kodo, because that was allowing him to get a good trade once again with that 5 extra damage. Now Ty's loading up the board once more, positioning himself to potentially end the game. Strifo could do with another Unleash the Hounds. That'd be very nice.
Yep, instead he gets Kill Command. And I think he's too far behind. This is a lot of damage he's facing down, and now he has to start using spells very inefficiently to deal with what his opponent has.
My gosh, you're right. He's looking at 8 damage. A Doom Guard off the top just kills him, so he has to spend removal. But that stinks, because you're just essentially passing. What else are you going to do?
Well, I mean, look at how important this Voidwalker is here. If he plays Savannah Highmane, it's just going to attack the Voidwalker. Like, do you have to play to drawing a Houndmaster and hoping that your opponent can't kill you, and then also hoping that the Houndmaster can recover you? That's so much weird circumstance to be relying on. And if you're going to do that, I guess you play... And there's some merit to playing Buzzard and
the Snapjaw
Turtle also. Yeah, it's just... Here's another weird play that can happen. If he doesn't end up dying this turn, he actually might be able to Hunter's Mark his own Savannah Highmane and attack it into the Voidwalker to draw 2 more cards.
Oh, snap. Next level plays.
Yeah.
Well, that might be exactly what he needs to do, because he's going to be down to just 4 health. Or maybe Tyz wants to activate his egg?
Yep, he's going to get a 4/4 out of this. Oh, no. Point of damage, we lied.
I think putting at 4 is nice. Whatever you put yourself in the Soulfire range, the top deck.
All right, well, I think this is the only way he's going to find himself out of it, is if he Hunter's Marks his own Savannah Highmane to draw 2 cards and hopefully find a second Unleash the Hounds. I don't see another play.
That is pretty amusing. Let's see if it pays off for him. He needs something like the Unleash the Hounds. It's now or never. Maybe something to just continue the chain of draws.
Yep. Oh, geez.
Okay, judgment time. You got 2 draws to make this happen. Freezing Trap is not one of them. An Animal Companion isn't either. He can't draw Unleashed anymore.
What can he make?
Actually, I think he can't draw Unleash anymore.
4. Nope. I think he's just dead at every step of the way. If he Kill Commands the 4-power guy... Here's the only way he doesn't live is if... I'm sorry, the only way he lives is if Tides messes up his attack sequence here. He's gonna draw another card, but what can he draw? Does he have Explosive Trap in his deck?
Maybe he has another Stone Tusk board to limit damage, and he gets like a Misha.
That could help too. A lot of very fortunate things need to happen.
A Web Spinner.
and that's going to be it.
Ugh.
I think he's just out of stuff. Like, does he have to dig for Stone Test Board with Web Spinner?
He might have to.
And even then, does he stay? Even then, he doesn't stay alive. I don't think. No, because then he's still facing
No?
down 4 points of damage.
Well, that's going to be it no matter what. Strifeco has run out of options, and Tides is going to take the series 3-0. And as if it wasn't enough insurance, Strifeco's tournament ends here, and Tides advances to day number 3 to join Firebat and Alchemix in a spot in the top 2 WEC finals in September. And what a way to end it. You know, Tides, I felt like all tournament long, Zoo hasn't worked out for him whatsoever in his 3 series before this. And finally, Zoo has had that breakthrough performance, which everyone kind of respects a lot and partially complain a lot. Quite frankly, now that Naxxramas is out, Zoo is under fire once again as being one of the most dominant decks.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, too. It seems like so far this tournament, Zoo has really not worked out for Tides, but he continued to go with his strategy because he understands that the percentage plays are what he needs to do. So a bit of a risky lineup choice at the end, not vetoing Miracle Road, but once he passed that hill, you saw it snowball way out of control, and it doesn't surprise me that it ends up working because that's the nature of those strategies. When they work very well, and when they don't work, sometimes it looks kind of bad. But you got to play your game, and you got to do what you've practiced and what you know works, and you can't fault a guy for that at all.
Take a look at the brackets and recap once more before we send you guys off. It's been a really fun day. We have 5 players eliminated. Amaz and Brad were the first to go, followed by Reynad and Reels. Finally, Strifeco has fallen in 4th place. Tides will wait in the lower bracket finals tomorrow evening, or afternoon, or morning, depending on what time zone you are. Firebat and Alchemix will lead off today. The winner of that already gets a ticket to China that is paid for. The loser will get one more opportunity versus Tides, and then we will have a final show match just for fun, best of 7 for your entertainment pleasure, where you guys get to see these guys just kind of have fun and be more relaxed, but still at the same time show what their entire lineup can do and they're capable of. You know, Tides, I'm on a personal level pretty happy, not just as a person who's involved in Temple Storm, but also because I know that he was a guy who's saying he needs to kind of kick in serious mode and place well in tournaments just because of what's going on in recent times with himself. So a great job to have results. I'm really happy for the top 3 in general too. Alchemix proving that, you know, him being on Curse and being the ace for DKMR for a long time is still definitely the case, as well as Firebat showing off that he is one of the top players in North America that's yet to be truly discovered as one of the best players in that region.
Yeah, your analysis is just 100% spot on. Very happy for all these players, and again, of course, a little bit sad for everyone that didn't make it, but that's the way tournaments go. Someone has to win, and someone has to lose. We've got our top 3 locked in. I cannot wait for these matches tomorrow.
Great way to wrap up the show. Thank you so much. That's Admirable, Milcast, Cindy, and everyone else who's been watching. This has been a 2P production for the WEC North American Qualifiers. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST for the conclusion. Find out what happens tomorrow. We'll see you guys then. Peace.
Peace.